Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, greeting to all of us on Friday, May 20 of 2022 at the Zoom meeting for the Speaking for Academic Purpose course with Mr. Sumarta as a lecturer of this course. We will debate the topic, should cigarettes be banned from society? Today's debate consists of two teams, the government team and the opposition team. Before the debates begin, I will deliver some rules of this debate. First, each team introduces themselves. Then the government team delivers the first argument for 6 minutes. Then the opposition team delivers the first argument for 6 minutes. The government team will then refute or comment on the opposition team's arguments for 3 minutes. After that, the opposition team will also refute or comment on the government team's argument for 3 minutes. Refutation is carried out in 2 rounds. After that, at the end of the debate, each team is expected to present the conclusion of each team's argument. Please start with the introduction. Okay, thank you, moderator. I am Irma Liliana Rohimah, the government team.
All right, I am Desy Rosya Fitriani, the opposition team.
All right, please, the government team, present your argument in 6 minutes. All right, my argument will begin now. Based on the World Health Organization or WHO data, smoking is one of the main risk factors for various diseases such as coronary heart disease, stroke, cancer, chronic lung disease, and diabetes mellitus. It is the main cause of deaths globally, including in our country, Indonesia. Cigarette consumption kills 1% every second. In Indonesia, currently smokers are not only adults, but many teenagers who become smokers. World Health Organization or WHO mentions the latest data released by the Global Youth Tobacco Survey in 2019. The data shows that 40.6% of students in Indonesia aged 33 and age 13 until 15 years, 2 out of 3 boys and almost 1 in 5 girls have used tobacco products. That 19.2% of students currently smoke, and of this, 60.6% are not even prevented from buying cigarettes because of their age, and 2/3 of them can buy cigarettes retail in small shops or stale. This data is continuously updated until the Central Statistics Agency or BPS states that the percentage of the Indonesian population aged 15 years and over who smoke is 28.96% in 2021. This percentage is an increase from the previous year, which is in 2020 was 28.69%. Lampung is the province with the highest smoking population age 50 years and over, reaching 34.7%. Bengkulu is in second place with a percentage of 33.17%. Meanwhile, Bali was recorded as the province with the lowest percentage, which was only 19.58%. The increasing number of active smokers among the younger generation will endanger the quality of future generation and affect the quality of the demographic bonus that is expected to occur in Indonesia. Also, in fact, many countries in the world have banned smoking. For example, Saudi Arabia. The ban on smoking there have been in place in the holy cities of Mecca and Medina since 22. Even the Saudi Arabia clerical assembly has long forbidden the sale or use cigarettes through a fatwa, which is supported by the government. The consideration is that cigarettes are harmful to health and less useful. Then, why can't Indonesia do it? Many cases of disease are caused by smoking, though. For example, at this time, there are many occurrences of coronary heart disease and stroke that attack people under the age of 40 years. This disease, which usually occurs in the elderly, appears at a young age due to smoking. In young people who have one of these diseases, sudden death is a common. On the other hand, we must admit that the industry that produces cigarettes is a legal product that fulfills the obligation to pay taxes to the state. The cigarette industry also participate in building and developing the workforce in Indonesia. The cigarette industry also buys tobacco produced by farmers as a main raw material for cigarette products and hazardous chemicals, which are part of the raw materials for cigarette production. It makes the cigarette industry part of the place to depend on as livelihood for the people involved in the process of the cigarette product itself. On the other hand, the cigarette industry also directly and indirectly participates in creating sources of disease that afflict humans as part of the impact of cigarettes and their smoke without recognizing human boundaries, from children to adults, from women to men. The cigarette industry is also one of the industry that creates products harmful to human growth and development, both individually and socially. So that every year the government spends 2.11 trillion rupiahs for the treatment of tobacco-related diseases, which consists of inpatient expenditure of 1.85 trillion rupiahs and outpatient expenses of 0.26 trillion rupiahs. In addition, the economic impact of smoking has a devastating effect of society due to premature death, lost productivity, and the financial burden on smokers and their families, healthcare providers, insurance providers, and employers. Please, the opposition team, present your argument in 6 minutes.
Alright, thank you, moderator. My argument will be now. As we all know that the impact of cigarette smoke is very dangerous for the health of the lungs and other organs of the body. A smoking ban is a policy that prohibits smoking in the workplace and public space. Smoking can be addictive and can be harmful to health because of the nicotine content in cigarettes. Previously, I did not agree that cigarettes should be banned from society because now Indonesia is the third country with the highest number of smokers in the world after China and India. Suddenly, there are about 70 million active smokers and 70% of them are adult men. So why is the cigarettes not banned by the government? Yes, because cigarettes pay the most tax to the government and excise. Cigarettes hardly help increase state revenue for the development of people with health. Cigarettes are legal products that also have to pay tax for the state. The cigarette industry also involves a lot of labor in the product process, and it's the place where people's life depend on cigarettes production process itself. The government is also aggressively campaigning in various media about the dangers of smoking. Interestingly, Although cigarettes are considered or perceived as a dangerous commodity, the government has so far enjoyed a very large cigarette excise tax. According to data from the Central Statistic Agency or BPS in 2016, cigarettes contribute 146 trillion to the country, and it is estimated that cigarette tax will continue to increase every year. So, although cigarettes and tobacco are always considered stepchildren who are discriminated against compared to other commodities, the government for years has used cigarette fund for national development program whose results are of course enjoyed by all level of society. Although cigarettes and tobacco are always considered stepchildren who are discriminated against compared to other commodities, the government for years has used cigarette fund for national development program whose results are cigarette excise money of finance, BPGS or Social Security Administering Agency program to help the lower class people who are economically disadvantaged. So far, many people view the tobacco issue only from one side, for example, from the health aspect. In fact, there are aspects to state revenue in the form of excise. They are industrial interests. Uh, there are interests of tobacco farmers and millions of workers that must also be considered. All of these interests are seen in the long-term framework, referring to the industrial roadmap completed by the government of the Ministry of Industry, namely how to harmonize state income, industry labor, and health. Unfortunately, this matter was never seriously discussed. Finally, there is the center group that read tobacco very poorly. Cigarette excise is still the largest contribution to state revenue from excise. In fact, custom note the contribution of cigarette excise tax reached 96%. It is undeniable that the excise of this industry is supported of state revenue. This is reflected in the target of excise revenue in 2021, reaching in 180 trillions, and this year it is expected to increase again to 203 trillions, as regulated in the law number 39 of 2006 concerning excise on tobacco products has a broad scope such as light tobacco, cigarette, or cigar. Even so, the role of cigarettes still dominates. Finance Minister Sri Mulyani Indrawati said the increase in excise rate on tobacco products or cigarettes excise was carried out to protect public health, where our tariff will increase by 12% in 2022. According to him, cigarettes are a dangerous product that must be kept away from the public. That's why the government does not close the cigarette factory because so far the cigarette factory cannot be closed because cigarettes provide a larger excise income for the state, not to mention in the term of cigarette income tax. cigarette entrepreneur is one of the highest in Indonesia. Thank you.
Please the government team to comment on or refute the arguments of the opposition team. Okay, thank you, moderator. There are actually many other industries that pay high taxes beside the cigarette industry when it comes to taxes. An example is the processing industry or the manufacturing industry. The Minister of Industry Erlangga Hartarto stated that this industry contributes to donating on non-oil and gas taxes every year. It is known that this industry contributes taxes up to 103.07 trillion rupiahs, with double-digit growth of 7.3%. This achievement is in line with the Central Statistic Agency or BPS data, which shows that large and medium-sized domestic processing industries appeared to be stretching in the first quarter of 2018. So the cigarette industry is not the only one that has a good influence on the country's economy. On the other hand, the cigarette industry is also one of the industry that produce product harmful to human growth and development, both individually and socially. It makes the cigarette industry part of the industry that participates in violating human rights to live healthily and breathe clean air. In, cre- in indirectly depriving human rights of life due to exposure of cigarette smoke. And then the habit of smoking causes a person to become more selfish when smokers are smoking in public. And many smokers ignore the rules of no smoking in public spaces. This habit is very detrimental to the health of others because it makes other people passive smokers, which is much more dangerous than active smokers, right? And then the Indonesian Minister of Health also support this. He said that the risk is more significant in passive smokers because they do not have a filter to absorb all cigarette smoke emitted by active smokers. Okay, please the opposition team to comment on or refute the government team.
Okay, thank you, moderator. A smoker is never forced to smoke by the manufacturer. Cigarette products are controlled goods, so they are not free to be consumed. Control is carried out through excise duty imposed on cigarette products. In addition, there is the requirement to include a health hazard warning on every pack of cigarettes. The exercise of controlling cigarette consumption so with withdrawal of excise so that there is no element of conscience to smoke. In addition, for smokers themselves, arrangements are also made, among others, by giving cigarettes only in a certain room. Regulatory costs for smokers are taken from the excise duty imposed on cigarette manufacturers. A smoker who is sick because of smoking has been warned outside the package about the dangers of smoking. So one of those people still want to smoke even though they already know the risks that will be obtained. People who people who believe, but many also consider The myth of the campaign about the dangers of smoking to health. According to those who are pro-smoking, there are never been his story that anyone died from smoking. In fact, the facts show that many active smokers in the village remain healthy, disease-free, and live a long life. Cigarettes and smoking for some Indonesian people are not merely health problems but are closely related to various aspects: economic, politic, ritual, culture, tradition, history, and certain cultural symbols. Even though the dangers of cigarette smoke are still dangerous when vehicle and exhaust flames. But interestingly, people are concerned about cigarette smoke but don't care about vehicle smoke. Given the importance of cigarettes among the public, the government should be wiser and fairer in addressing this issue and also need to pay attention to wider segment of society, including tobacco farmer, cigarette trader, and cigarette factory workers who depend on tobacco and cigarette for their livelihood. Thank you.
Okay, please the government team to comment on or refute the opposition team. Okay, thank you, moderator. In my opinion, yeah, the government does play an important role in finding a solution to this problem, but smokers awareness is more important. Why? Because smoke, dust, and cigarette butts have a bad impact on the environment. Cigarette butts take 1.5 to 2.5 years to decompose in the soil. Then to decompose in water takes 5 years. It takes a long time, right? And then the habit of people who often throw cigarette butts carelessly. Throwing it into the ground can damage the soil. Throwing it into the water can damage the aquatic ecosystem. And then when it rains, it is very easy to for cigarette butts to be carried away by rainwater, and then it goes to the ditch, carried out to rivers, ports, and even into the sea. The harmful chemical contained in the cigarette butts will degrade water quality and harm the marine ecosystem. If animals eat these cigarette butts, it can certainly cause poisoning and even death. Cigarette packaging is also at risk because it is not environmental friendly. Cigarette filter plastic contains harmful substances that can damage the environment, and it can continue to spread even after 10 years of being thrown away. Plus, the holiday phenomenon of visitors who often go to the natural tourism destinations with the habit of leaving their cigarette butts trash in any place. Beaches are one of the biggest places for cigarette butts to be found. In addition, cigarette butts are scattered in the sea, rivers, lakes, mountains, trees, and other places. Cigarette butts may look small, but imagine if at least one active smoker finishes one pack of cigarettes. And just imagine if at least 30% of active smokers in all parts of Indonesia spend one pack of cigarettes per day. Then, how many cigarette butts are scattered in our environment? Of course, that's a lot. Cigarettes have become something that is often underestimated by the community. The low level of consciousness can harm anyone including nature. If you really can't stop smoking, don't place cigarette waste carelessly, especially in an environment that needs to be protected by its ecosystem. Because if you can't take care of it, I think it's best if the cigarette is banned. Okay, please the opposition team to comment on or refute the government team.
Okay, thank you, moderator. But I'm sorry, maybe my camera has a problem.
It's okay.
Yeah. In my opinion, on the one hand, cigarettes are indeed dangerous for public health. But on the other hand, the cigarette industry is part of a legal industry for the state. Therefore, there is a need for a solution that can be a middle ground for the pros and cons of regulating cigarette products, such as first, there is a government regulating prohibiting the sale of cigarettes in the retail, but they must be in the form of pack. This is to avoid the affordability of children to consume cigarettes. Secondly, to impose restriction on smoking and non-smoking area, especially in public places, to create public order between smokers and non-smokers. Third, the need for the government to issue a regulation prohibiting the total advertising and promotion of cigarettes because advertising and promotion of cigarettes from the cigarette industry is the publication that doesn't educate and mislead the public. On the other hand, the absence of advertising and promotion of cigarette product will not affect the sale of cigarettes product themselves. Because cigarettes are addictive objects that have a high sense of dependence for those who consume them. Number four, the government raised cigarettes excise every year so that the price of cigarettes cannot be received by children and the poor. On other hand, state revenue from cigarette excise will also increase. This also actually will not receive income from the cigarette industry because cigarette excise is charged to consumers. Because with regulation that cover this thing on the one hand, the cigarette industry can steal products. On the other hand, there is protection from the government for its citizens against the dangers of the impact of cigarette smoke itself. Especially on children and the poor as well as non-smokers, so that the government doesn't neglect the health right and healthy lives of its citizens due to the dangers of cigarette smokes. Thank you.
All right, it's almost the end of the debate. Please, each team to convey your conclusion, starting for the government team, please. All right, thank you, moderator. In conclusion, cigarettes have a lot of negative impacts, as I have discussed earlier. If the government does not take action, such as increasing the price of cigarettes and selling with system packs to avoid the reach of young people consuming cigarettes, and if there is no awareness of smokers in protecting the environment and people around from smoking, then I believe that cigarettes should be banned. Okay, please for the opposition team to convey your conclusions.
Okay, thank you, moderator. The conclusion is the Indonesia government, both central and regional and public policymakers need to make regulations that are truly an alternative and capable of being the wishes and the solution that benefit all parties, both anti-smoking and pro-smoking. So far, there has been a strong impression that various regulations and public policy made by the government seem to have the nuances of deterring or scaring, especially cigarette consumers, reducing solutions that are solutions strategies both and satisfy all parties. The government also needs to encourage cigarette producers in Indonesia to actively conduct research and idea for alternative cigarettes products that don't harm health while providing security and comfort for cigarette consumers in Indonesia. Thank you.
All right, the debate on the topic should cigarettes be banned from society is done. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you.